Okay. All right.
Yay.
Bula vinaka, aloha
Aloha.
uh, to our listeners, and we are so grateful that today is a very special episode. And we are both connecting in from beautiful sunny California in the United States of America. So, greeting all our listeners from Fiji, those of you who are connecting in Tineseru, Seleima, Ruthi, Rokuma. Thank you so much for joining in. And to those of you who will be listening to the recorded podcast. So, I will be uploading it on my Talanoa with Dr. T page as well as on my YouTube channel. Again, this is a special episode because I have my guest here, as you can see on the screen, my colleague, Dr. Lani Cupchoy.
Hi,
Uh,
everyone.
I will get her to introduce herself to you very shortly, but we are just both so excited that we have a very special announcement that we'll also be making to all of you who've been following our journey via Facebook, via Instagram. I'm recently joining TikTok, so I'm new on that as well, and also on YouTube. So again, a very warm welcome and aloha to you all. Now, Dr. Lani, would you like to greet our listeners and those who are joining in watching our Talanoa today?
Yes, aloha kauko. I'm Lani Cupchoy. Bienvenidos a todos. I'm going to say it in Spanish for anybody that is maybe speaking Spanish and joining us. I'm just so grateful to be here. I am a professor at Cal State LA. I teach in the Chicana O, Latina O Studies Department. Native Los Angelina, born and raised in LA, and just an individual who I would consider myself more like very free spirited, very I consider myself spiritual. I also am a lover of all the arts, music, dance, and more recently getting into the world of film, right, which is like something that kind of brought my creativeness, into this world. So just so grateful to be here. Thank you, Teresi, for having me on your show. And I see we are live on Facebook, so that's amazing.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Lani, for taking the time away from your busy weekend schedule. I know it's Sunday here. So, to our listeners, it is Sunday here in California, and we are just so happy that we can put at least 30 minutes aside for from our schedule today just to come along and Talanoa and share, some of the, recent work that we have been working on together. So, also to our listeners, if any of you have any questions,
Yeah.
in the middle of our talk story with Dr. Lani, and you have something you want to ask or anything you want to, contribute to our chat, please feel free to type in your question or comment on the comment section of the live. All right. So now, Dr. Lani, I've just been so inspired by the work you've been doing, and it's been, you know, uh, a pleasure for me to get to meet you here at Cal State LA. And I remember Dr. Lani when I was in Hawaii. We were there for 5 years, and then coming over here, I wasn't sure whether there was going to be any Pacific Islander here at the Cal State LA. And then when I heard that there was one person, and that was you, and I was like, oh, that is so cool. I'm not alone here. And then to also know that you are from Hawaii, and, that's even, so much a double, triple blessing, with your connection to Hawaii as well as your connection to the United States and to Mexico. So maybe just a little bit about yourself, your ohana. Can you just tell us a little bit about you?
Yes. So from my dad's side, it's part Pacific Islander, and so you see behind me, this is the island of Maui. So I'm in the lavender fields there. That's where my dad originally was born and raised there, and all of my ohana comes from there, and other islands, Big Island, Oahu, and Kauai. And so I am part Kanaka Maoli and Chinese. And then from my mom's side, she's Mexicana. So we are part Afro Latina Indígena. So I have the indigenous roots of Purépecha and also Mexica from those native tribes. And so I have a lot of lineages going from everywhere. But I like to say that as a multicultural or multi-ethnic individual, all of these ancestral lines have pretty much inspired the work that I do today, because without that, I would not really not only understand my histories, where I come from, my identities, but more than that, it roots me and it grounds me in the work that continues to be done, in our communities today.
That is awesome. And also, I know, Lani, that you were born here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, so born in LA, but dad was born in Maui.
Wow. So there's the Hawaii connection. Yeah, you have the California connection and
Yeah,
also down over to Mexico.
yeah.
Now, Lani, how did you get into filmmaking?
Yeah, so filmmaking, well, I actually started out as an artist first, and I mean like a visual artist. So I know the grind. Shout out to all the artists out there. Visual and creative expressions have always been at the center of my life. And then at the same time, I was also finishing up on my PhD at UC Irvine. And I was doing oral history at the time. That was what I was studying because I'm a public historian, public culture historian. And so a lot of my work has always been around honoring and preserving community voices, and especially those that are like silenced or erased or marginalized, right? So from oral history, I got this one moment when I got this crazy idea of like running for school board for Montebello Unified, which is where I grew up. And I remember running into a teacher there, and she had her class, and she's like, do you maybe want to come in and meet my class? They're doing some projects. I'm like, yes. So I went in and I fell in love not only with those students, but just the work that they were doing. At that time, it was on repatriation, but we don't call it repatriation, but we call it the deportations, right? The unconstitutional deportations of the 1930s. Mexican repatriation is the formal term. And these students went all the way to Sacramento, and they pretty much entered a contest like it ought to be a law for you to like know about this history in our textbooks, and they championed it and they did an amazing job. So my first film, Truth Seekers, was really about that. And I was hesitant to first do it. Shout out to Leslie Hyatt, right? If you're seeing this, but like I was hesitant about doing it at first because I was like, I don't know how to do film. Like that's just not me. But she was like, we don't have anybody else to grab the story, so we really need you. And I just catapulted myself in and just did it. So that was like my first film back in like 2016. And then
Wow.
over time, now with Oceanbone, this is my sixth film, my sixth documentary. Humbly, I say, all of them have been award-winning films, meaning we show them and different festivals have picked them up and have given it a particular kind of recognition beyond just laurels. So I feel so humbled, and it's just been building. So each film carries that piece of that journey, I would say,
Mm,
where it's connecting art and memory and healing. Especially when we're talking about like urgent political climate and struggles, whether it's food justice, community
mm,
resilience, or even repatriation. So I personally fell in love with filmmaking, even though I'm, a total historian geek nerd, right? But like I fell in love with filmmaking because I saw the real impact of storytelling and what that can do in everyday people's lives. And that particular film with Truth Seekers was different because I interviewed one of our elders who she was unconstitutionally deported when she was a young girl. And we were able to get her story. And she had given her testimony in textbooks, and you read it and you're like you connect to it, but like seeing her on film talking about it and seeing her emotionally talking about it just was like, okay, now I know the power of film. And so
mm,
since then, I've seen film, spark very important conversations, open hearts with people, spark
mm.
empathy in classrooms, in communities, international spaces. So for me, I see this as, that the impact with film continues to inspire me to tell these stories that matter.
Wow, that is amazing. And you started in 2015. Was it 2016?
16.
Yeah, and you're coming closer
Professionally, we'll say.
coming closer to 10 years next year.
Yes,
And
my decade anniversary. Yes.
yes, that is
Yes.
amazing. And within the 10 years, you created six films, and that's amazing, Lani.
Yeah, thank you. And it's been a lot of growth. So I look back at that first film and I try not to like, I show it in my classes sometimes just so that students and people can see. Because when they see like, they see Oceanbone and they're like, oh my gosh, right? But then, wow. But when you have to see the first film so you could see how I progressed and grew to where I'm at today because it didn't just happen overnight.
Wow, that is amazing. So for those of you who are listening in, I'm sure parents as well as students who are interested to go into filmmaking, this will be a really good talk story to listen to and to be inspired because Lani is one of them. Yes, she did know she had no experience in filmmaking, but she, you know, pushed herself to get her into it. And look, she's
And
got a
I
six
always
film.
say that I did not go to the fancy foo-foo, film school. And respect to all those folks, because I'm sure colleagues are going to see this and be, Lani, there you go again saying it. Yes, I did not go to the fancy film school, but I did have to learn the technical work. I had to figure out I edit everything myself. I film everything myself. Like, I look for the music, and try to create and retell that. So I see myself as a storyteller, really. That's how I ground myself. And I know if I can do it, anybody can do it. I mean, in today's age with like, Instagram and Facebook, we're all storytellers. And so I always tell people, grab your phone and go interview like your parents while they're still with you. Interview your
Wow.
grandparents and those our elders, because they have such a wealth of knowledge and stories that have yet to be put on the screen. I just happen to be one of those that I'm doing it independently again, I still tell myself, how did I get to 6 films? When did that happen? Over 10 years of growth.
Wow. And that just shows dedication and bravery. It takes a lot of courage, to get into a field that is new. But then, now you are mastering all the skills, and now we have Oceanbone. Well, now speaking of Oceanbone, what drew you to this film, Lani?
Yeah, well, let me start by saying what the film's about because I think then people
Yes.
can kind of understand, right? So Oceanbone, and that's a collaboration between you and I, Dr. Tracy, right? But Oceanbone is like a poetic, and I'm gonna call it I like to say haunting documentary that confronts, because it's confronting colonialism. It's confronting colonial theft of indigenous remains. So we're
Mm,
talking skeletal remains. And it's part of this sort of call for an urgent movement for repatriation.
mm,
And so it weaves Pacific Island voices, ancestral stories that show both the violence of this history, but also the beauty of the
mm,
resilience as we see with your work and with others, right? So I was very intentional in choosing the poetic Pacific Island voices who would help tell this story, besides yourself, right, who's our repatriation scholar, but it also features different Pacific Islanders from like Joey Kenga, who's Chamorro, to your husband Kali, right, Bunidilo, who's Fijian, and then Barbara Makuati Afitu, right, and who is Samoan. And then myself, right, I actually did the voice for the Kanaka Maoli ancestor because that's my heritage, right? And so it was a way of kind of bringing these voices together and giving different Pacific Island perspectives that
mm,
honor, and embody that spirit of like ocean bone. So at the heart of this story is about honoring our ancestors,
mm,
refusing to let them remain in museums or collections. And I guess we'll talk a little bit more about it, but like it's about bringing them home and returning them with dignity and ceremony and a lot of aloha, a lot of love. And it's a film, right, that calls to action. So when we talk about what drew me to this story in the first place, the urgency, the sacredness of repatriation, that's why I reached out to you, Therese, because I was like, we need to do a film together. And I think the work that you're doing is amazing. And I think if we can just document it and try to tell that story and use it as a way to kind of support the work, why not? And
mm,
so working with you has really made this journey even more powerful for me. I mean, I'm the storyteller, but a lot of it is your life's work, the stories and the individuals that you've connected with,
mm,
And so my role as a filmmaker was really about creating a platform and also translating a lot of those truths that you were talking about, but just
mm,
bringing all the elements together in the like poetic and also visual storytelling kind of way. And I believe that what we built, collaboration with everybody that's been a part of the team is both haunting, beautiful, but also deeply rooted in activism. And I think one of the bigger themes for us is the healing, right? We were talking about how can Oceanbone not
Mm,
just be this film that goes out, but we say in Kanaka, in Olelo, right? We call it kuliana, which is our kuliana is our responsibility.
mm,
And so working with you has also meant that that kuliana is shared with me. Like you're not the only one to receive that is carrying this
mm.
kuliana. Like it's myself, it's all those other voices, and it's everyone, it's all of you, that are watching this now, in our communities. It's all of our kuliana to help, restore that peace back into our communities.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And Lani, do you have the one of the posters that we put together for Oceanbone? You can share it from your side.
Okay, I will. I'll have to look it up.
Okay.
But,
So
but
we
maybe in the meantime, while I'm looking at, maybe you can share a little bit, Teresa, because I don't want this to just be about me. So maybe you can talk about what inspired you to kind of get into Oceanbone, right? Besides me like
Yes.
connecting with you, and maybe talk a little bit about like your life's work with repatriation,
Mm,
especially for our listeners who may be like new to this. Maybe you can
yes.
explain why repatriation is such an urgent issue today, and
Mm,
maybe how you see Oceanbone kind of contributing to these
mm.
global conversations. And then I'll find that poster right now.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yes. So for those of you who are listening in who may not know what I do, so my background is in museums. I started in the field of archaeology. So I did a lot of excavations, digging of old village sites around Fiji. So many of my followers, they have met me in villages all around Fiji, and it's been, you know, a blessing, to meet many of our brothers and sisters from Fiji in different settings all around the 14 provinces. So before my family moved over to New Zealand, that was part of my work at the Fiji Museum, where we actually go out into villages and record their oral history, and also at the same time we evaluate and assess their heritage sites. These are the old village sites behind the villages or up in the mountains. I have so many wonderful memories of all the mountains that I've climbed, the rivers that I crossed, the ocean that I sailed through, and it's really kind of grounded me. And so when I moved over to New Zealand, I did my postgraduate diploma and also my master's, and so I was encouraged to, do my PhD. And so I really want to acknowledge my family, especially my husband, Mr. Bunindilo, and my two children, Meriwe Rita and Leo, for their support, for me to do my PhD research while I was working full time back then. And so I have to choose a topic, and the topic I chose was repatriation. So you can see on the screen, Dr. Lani has shown the snapshot of what this film is all about. So we'll be talking a little bit more about this film. And so the reason why I really gravitated towards the filmmaking part of repatriation was that through the work I've done is it's been involving a lot of the face-to-face meetings. I've been traveling all over the world, talking to different museum directors, curators, people that work in museum collections, to try and look at returning some of the ancestral remains as well as artifacts that were taken under dubious circumstances, to return them back to where they originally come from. So that was part of the research I did for my PhD. I only focus on Fiji, and I really want to acknowledge the University of Auckland for pushing me out of my comfort zone so that I can be able to not just focusing on the Fijian collection, but also across the Pacific. It's not easy, but I felt in my heart that it was a calling. I've never felt unsafe working with ancestral remains. In working in archaeology, when we excavate graves, we've come across, bones, ancestors that have passed on for thousands of years. I've had the wonderful opportunity to handle them, look after them, wrap them, and put them back in the grave. So working with ancestral remains was something that I was so used to, yeah, back then. And then moving over to New Zealand was this opportunity to learn from our Maori brothers and sisters on how they handle repatriation. So repatriation is the return of the ancestors or artifacts from a new country where they were taken to go back to where it originally come from. And so this film that I worked with Dr. Lani, the Oceanbone, is such a wonderful opportunity where instead of meeting people face to face and doing what I used to do, now I can turn the conversation in a film form so that everything that I would have talked about for hours would be just summarized in a very short 9-minute film where we can show it to government officials, showing it to communities so that they can kind of understand the work that we do. So for me, working on Oceanbone, the film, was an eye opener for me because I've never done it before. And it was so kind of a little bit scary in the beginning, but knowing that Lani has 5 films under her belt, it felt so much at home. I knew that Lani, as my Pacific Island sister, we are working on it together. It was not just me, it was Lani, it was Joey, it was Carly, it was Barbara, and many thousands others who we knew were there with us in spirit. And so again, Dr. Lani, thank you so much for, taking on the challenge, that through a number of conversation, the idea was, let's make a film. And ta-da, we got
I
one.
know. And I was just gonna chime in really quick. I have to give props to like, all the folks. Kali actually filmed or well film we recorded his voice. He literally nailed it in the first take because we were actually in the archives right when we were
Mhm.
filming and grabbing his audio, and they were closing, and we were like, we literally need to like get this like now. And so with his amazing, what I call whisper voice, he was able to nail like exactly the feeling and the sentiment of that particular ancestral voice. And he did it in one take. That's the thing that was amazing. I was like, wow. I went back, I listened, I was like, Kali, you have like a future in Hollywood. You really have a future in Hollywood. I'm just saying. So I want to share that story because it was amazing. And then you as well, Tracy, when we started getting your interviews and I started getting to know all the different stories of the work that you've done. And
Mhm.
it was amazing to see through your eyes, right, the journey that you've been on, but also the work that still needs to be done, right? it,
Mm.
it needs to continue and hopefully inspire other people,
Mhm.
to get on board and to support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And I think, Dr. Lani, I can see that you asked the question of the sense of urgency. Yeah, you're
Yes.
absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That there's repatriation happening in all other parts of the world. In Africa, you can see that in the news for the British Museum. Negotiating for the return of some ancestors and some artifacts from the British Museum to go back. Some of you who are listening in may have heard about the debate between Greece and the British people,
Mm.
because a lot of the Greek, ancestors and, artifacts are there in England. But the Greece museum and the Greek people, they like, bring them back. They're not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be here. So all this debate that are happening, in England, in Greece, there's a lot of, as a result of those debate, it has opened up, many museum vaults to be, open too. That includes the Pacific. And so the Germans and the French and the Norwegians and so many people in the European nations were like, hang on a minute, there's all this debate with these big nations, but we also have thousands of artifacts from this part of the world. And so this is big, urgent work that needs to be done to get a lot of these materials, particularly artifacts and ancestral remains that were taken. Some were taken by force, some were stolen to be returned back home.
See that really? I'm not going to say angry. That really upsets me. That's one of the things when I first learned about it and you're sharing with me. Even like, I think every culture community has had experiences, especially when we talk about going back to colonial. I'm just going to throw one out there. Like
Sure.
folks are like trying to connect with this. There was a lot of artifacts taken, if you think about like even in the case of Mexico with like the penacho de Moctezuma, like Moctezuma's headdress. I mean,
Mm.
it's now in the museum in Austria, but it's like, why do they have that headdress? Why don't they just return it? And it's like there's this delicate kind of nature that I didn't know that it's like, well, you risk that it can decompose more, you risk this and that. And there's a lot of politicking behind getting certain kinds of items to come back. And
Yes.
so I see this kind of like the repatriation piece. I see that very similar to like land back, right? The land back movements and indigenous
Yes.
struggle, where it's like same thing with art. Why don't they just give them back? Just give them back. What do you have to do? Why do you have to keep these skulls in these
Mm.
places? Why do you have to keep human remains in these places? Like for me, I'm going to speak because, I know you have your, I'm
Mm.
not in the museum world and I'm not meant to offend anybody.
Mm.
I'm not trying to personally offend anybody, but my perspective, my little humble perspective is why do you have a skull of an individual,
Mm.
in a time with like in the 1800s where it was taken or stolen or it was put like a trophy, like, especially when we're talking about like, racial classifications and
Mm.
racial science, I guess we
Mhm.
could say. It's almost like putting, in the case of Pacific Islanders, putting us on this sort of display, like spectacle, like exotic. And it's time for us to shift that, right? And I commend certain museums have already taken big steps and saying, yeah, we're going to do our part. We're going to collaborate. We're going to help to return these remains. And as we say, Iwi, right? Iwi kupuna, is the way that we say it in our Olelo language, to return the Iwi back, to their original home state is so important,
Mm.
for these spirits to finally have peace and be at rest. Rather than being displayed as these trophies, in
Mhm.
private collections in the catacombs of museums. So I just want to put that out there, not to offend anyone, but that's just how
Mm.
I felt. And I was really upset when you were telling me, oh no, they have the skull of this, they have the skull of that. And I'm like,
Mm.
why? It's been over like 150 years. Why not return it? It's the right thing to do, So that's why I'm so excited to be a part of this journey with you and
Yes.
even to my contribution to help kind of contextualize it in a way where, an audience can see it and
Mm.
be like, yeah, that makes sense. Why aren't we repatriating more
Mm.
back?
Absolutely, because a lot of these museums, Lani, when indigenous communities come in and knock on the door and said, "Hey, we are here to take our ancestors back," a lot of times they often say exactly what you said before. They are better off here because we have a more controlled environment. They can live a little bit longer. Another one that they often say is that, "Oh, we need these skulls for further research." And in my mind, I'm thinking, how many more hundreds of years would you need to keep these ancestors for research? So that's one argument, and the other one too that was interesting when we were in Germany. A lot of our European friends and counterparts were saying, if you need these skulls for research, why does it have to be the indigenous people's skulls?
Right.
Why cannot be just a German skull or a skull from Europe, and it's interesting, Lani, that these are my European friends asking the same question, to kind of support us to tell them, hey, enough is enough. They've been here for far too long. They have to go back home.
And
And
this is about
so, yeah,
power. It's about
yes.
power. It is, and it's power for a long time. The reality is, we as Pacific Islanders, we have been studied, exotified, and even othered in many ways and seen as quote unquote inferior. When we talk about like native peoples, we're not anymore. We never have been. But I mean, the system of power, going back to the colonial days, is there, and we have to break through it. And this is one of the ways that we need to break through it, right? That this is like another hold on our, how do we say, like our identity?
Yes.
And that's why I was like, this is not right. These bones should not be there. This EV should not be there. So
Yes.
absolutely, I'm with you there, Teresi. I'm with you there.
Wow. Yeah, no, thank you so much again, Lani, for, the initiative to have the film to be made. And I have to say to our audience who are watching that when you have the opportunity to watch it, you'll be very much mesmerized by the use of poetry. And that was written by Dr. Lani, and then also having portions of those poems in indigenous languages. Why was it important to you, Dr. Lani?
Yes, so let's talk about that journey. So it was my first, so I've done poetry, and in fact, I have a couple books that are going to be coming out soon that is going to be featuring some of this poetry. So I feel like poetry heals, at least for me. And I wanted these voices to not just narrate. I wanted the essence through words, through poetry, through wisdom for us
Mm,
to be able to feel it. So it was really important for me. So it was my first time kind of going doing poetry for this piece. And then it was so important for me to have each of our storytellers, like we said, the Chamorro voice and the Fijian voice and the Samoan voice, and then the Kanaka voice, all of their voices blend, indigenous words coming from their particular language, right, that's utilized from their culture. And it was so important for them to say it so that people can hear it. So when it came time for like us to be like, okay, how, so like that's like the vision of it. But when you actually make a film and you have to put the captions, right? And
yeah.
so how does that look like? And so we were kind of going back and forth. We're like, I've never really seen a film that like keeps like merges both English and the indigenous words. At
Mm,
least for me, I've not, and I mean like the way that it's written, right? Exactly like that. And we
yes.
were like, we should keep it because this is also about introducing to audiences the native storytelling as well. We need to keep that element. And I'm like, I'm for it. Let's do it. And that's how this film, it was so important for us to stay true and authentic to each particular group because all of us have had some form of, as we would say, skulls and human remains that are being impacted in one
Mm,
kind of a museum, any like in different parts of the world. Like if you think, oh, that's not happening to my people. No, no, no. Almost every single museum, from the impact of this legacy of colonialism, every
mm,
single museum pretty much has, a remains from someone that is connected to your, how do we say, heritage in some way, right?
yes.
So that's why it was so important for me to blend the poetry, but also
Mm.
bring in, the native language of each group, and for them to say it themselves. So I didn't want to take away from that. I wanted them to be free and to be able to express and share.
Yeah, I think that was really, really powerful, and because it blends really well with the sound and the visuals, and I think that impact, that it has created to the various festivals that we have, submitted the film to, and the responses has been amazing. What has been the response you've seen and experienced so far, Lani?
It has been incredibly moving. And I know you've gone to some of the film festivals too, and the different places that I've gone to. I mean, a lot of people come up to me after showing that. They're like, "Oh, you did Oceanbone?" And I'm like, "Yes." And they're like, wow. So like indigenous viewers, when they see it, they feel validated. They're like, that happened to our people too, or that happened to us here, or this and that, right? And I think the more harrowing thing, at least for us, is like at the end of the film, I don't want to I'll give a little Easter egg, right? For the people that are gonna see it at some, they're like, I haven't seen it. But there's like over 10,000 remains left out there, that still need to be repatriated back. That's a big number. It's like how do you begin? So the ocean bone is like a call for not only indigenous viewers but also non-indigenous viewers, because that's just equally important, right? It's one thing to give the validation and, the recognition, but it's also to work with, it's a call for non-indigenous viewers to be awakened, right, to this part too, to the relationship, the way that they have relationships and to museums, history, to colonial legacies. I mean, I like to go to museums and visit, that may not particularly be part of my culture, but I love visiting different museums, because I learn and I can see and I can make connections. And so I'm
Mm,
hoping that like when we do this film, the impact has been both like everybody is just like, wow, that's a powerful film. It's short, but it is like powerful and it creates these important conversations, about empathy, about how we need to be working together, to do the right thing. And I think one of the most powerful things is the response from museums themselves, which you can see a lot of curators and a lot of directors that are like, yeah, no, we need to do something and let's collaborate and let's get this done, what needs to be done. And I think that is just as equally powerful. So it's not just the audiences, but also the people inside these spaces that have that, as we say, kuliana as well, to be able to
Yes.
like have the power to rightfully move ceremonially, the ibi to their rightful places.
Mm, absolutely. And I think I can see, a lot of action, that will come out of it. And as you said, very, very well there, the museum directors, the curators, are being motivated, to do something, yeah, to pay it forward, and to work with our indigenous communities. Now, I have to say, Lani, that I really enjoyed going over to the film festival in Las Vegas. It was my first film festival for me to attend. And then also we went to the one in New York, in Astoria. But I know we have some exciting news coming up. Would you like to share it with our
Yes,
audience?
do you see my little website, right? I actually have like all the film festivals. I don't know if you know this, but we actually have earned 19 laurels so far
Wow.
in this little short amount of time. We launched it in very late March, early April.
Mm.
So to be on this journey is amazing. You can see some of these here. I think the more recent ones have been like, the Pacific Island Film Festival in New York City, Morehouse College, that's in Georgia. We have one in New Mexico, right, which was a Pathways Indigenous Arts, another one in Georgia. Studio City is actually next week, right, in Hollywood, for those that want to catch it. In Florida, in Orlando, Florida, we have the Global Peace Film Festival. Let's see, in Eugene, an environmental film that we have Oregon, the Silicon Valley Asian Pacific Film Festival is coming up to Silicon Beach Film Festival in LA. And then we have the Red Nation International Film Festival in LA, which is a huge one too. And then one of the bigger ones is actually the St. Louis International Film Festival, which is a Oscar qualifier for our documentary short category, which is huge, right? It's huge. And like internationally, we've also been in different spaces. Fiji, so Suva International picked it up. A South Pacific Film Festival in New Zealand. I mean, yeah. And then I have to give a shout out to LA Pacifica, right? They also picked it up too. So, I mean, I feel really grateful. We won awards. Best documentary short, best cinematography, best environmental. Yeah, that's right. Toronto, Canada. I forgot to mention that one. That's an all women's film festival, but it's amazing. Yeah, Toronto, Canada, Canada. So we've already been hitting all of the like international circuits. And I just feel so humbled, when I see this. I'm like, wow, we're impacting. Because I don't know if people realize this, but like film festivals tend to have
Yes.
like about 5,000 people, attend
Wow.
at one point or another back and forth, right? I mean, they have, depending on the size, because some people might say, Lani, you're conflating it. Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of people coming and seeing your work. So it's that, it's also, distribution opportunities. It goes on and on. But I think for me, what is most validating is just the opportunity to,
Mm.
sit in the audience and see the film. And,
Yes.
sometimes we have panels and we talk about our experiences, but just the questions that we get about our work and why we create and what we do.
Mm.
As a filmmaker, for me, as a storyteller, it's just so beautiful to be able to go to all these. So when I say we have 19, I mean, multiply that by like 5,000 people per. And that's the
Wow.
impact that, we're making at this point in time. And then there's more. We've entered so many different film festivals for this year.
That is amazing. And again, congratulations to the team for the three awards we've got so far. And I know there's going to be more.
There's going to be more. There's going to be more. Yes. And all of the screenings are so incredibly like meaningful because they're all unique, and you can either go in the theater and see it or you can actually screen it online too. Some of them have different ones. And so I'm curious, Tracy, because I know, we're going to be wrapping up soon. What do you feel is like the future for your work for repatriation movement? What does it look like for you, especially when it comes to Oceanbone?
Yes, I think I'm beginning to see a lot of indigenous communities, joining us. Before it used to be mainly just those who work in the museum, and there's not very many of us, But now with Oceanbone being aired and more work shared on social media, and a lot of our projects that we've done with the repatriation to Hawaii in 2022, the return of the ancestors to New Zealand, Aotearoa in 2023, and then 2024 was the repatriation we did for the Republic of Palau. That is just only for the University of Göttingen in Germany. And imagine multiplied by hundreds of other museums in Germany alone. They
Oh, we forgot to
still,
add that. We forgot to add that,
yes.
Tracy. You should make that announcement. I shouldn't say that about Germany. I forgot.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, our film is now being officially taken and bought by the University of Göttingen in Germany. And woohoo, that's a big, big, achievement in itself that
Yeah,
a university, a huge university in Germany, have taken it upon themselves to, purchase the rights of the film, and they will be showing it to their students in
right,
years to come.
right. And it's also part of a permanent installation in their
Yes.
museum, right? And it's like forever, right? They basically said we want the rights forever. I was like, okay, we'll figure that out. So yeah, isn't that amazing? Like in Germany, it has its home there too. I never thought that, when we were filming this and we were recording this when it was raining. I don't know if you remember. It was raining outside, right? And I was like wheeling my cart in, with all of my equipment. I just never thought that like one day we'd be like, oh yeah, and by the way, it's going to be in a permanent installation, in Germany. I was like, I would not have thought that that would have happened at all.
Oh man, what
Right.
a blessing, what a blessing because, it kind of, I've been talking about this phrase, Dr. Lani, the cycle of life. We can say cycle or circle of life. And Mr. Wunidil and I have been reflecting on that phrase, and it's really true, for the university to purchase it after my 4 years fellowship over there was the icing on the cake, you know. What a blessing, my sister, that that the university has taken it upon themselves to utilize this film for the education of the students.
Right, right. And I just wanted to say, because I know we're wrapping up in time. I don't know how it is if we have viewers, shout out to all the viewers that are there. But I think one of the most important things about Oceanbone, like it's one of those kind of films where even after you see it, like you walk out and it's like you still remember it. It's this sort of call for remembrance, for justice, for healing. And I think the reason why it feels that way is because we're talking about ancestors. We're
Yes.
talking about spirits, individuals who lived and, so these are not artifacts, right? These are like living presence who continue to guide us, right, as well with doing this work, carrying forward this truth that repatriation is not only about returning remains, but it's about restoring, the dignity, the balance, the relationships that colonialism really severed,
Mm.
and created all this trauma in our communities. So part of it is like, I really want people to understand that they are part of this story too. When they come see
Amen.
the film, they're part of it, whether indigenous or non-indigenous. Again, we all have that kuleana to honor the past and to shape, a more just future. So
That is absolutely beautiful the way you said it, Lani, because now it has opened up this opportunity to collaborate across the world. So now we're working with some of our researchers from Africa. Even the other day, I got an email, Lani, from one of our brothers from Rapa Nui.
oh,
He's based in University of California, I think Santa Cruz, and they've been watching what we've been doing, and so they were interested to get some of my support and advice on the return of their ancestors back to Rapa Nui. And yeah, it just kind of created this conversation to people that I would never ever thought I would meet. And it's a blessing. Even the people in Hawaii, Mr. Vunindilo decided to become the marketing manager when we were there in May, and and spoke to Dr. Tevita Kaili and Dr. Tevita's wife as well, Liz, and they were just like gobsmacked. They were standing there. They were like, Teresi and Dr. Lani and all you guys were part of a film. How come we didn't know? And so now we are, negotiating that they want to have the film aired also in Hawaii.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
what a beautiful way to take it back home, especially for you, Lani,
Yeah.
because that's your home,
Yes.
and you being a filmmaker. How does it feel for you connecting back to your Aina?
I don't want to get emotional about it, right? Because, I still, let me tell you, this is my one moment where it's going to sound kind of bad, but I'm going to turn it into something transformational.
Mm,
When I first began with filmmaking, and I've done a few Pacific Island films, I think my experience with Aloha Soul Food in particular,
mm,
mm, there are not a lot of places that really support Pacific Island films.
mm,
I'm gonna be honest. There are, but it's a very small market in comparison to a lot of other places in the industry.
mm,
And especially as a woman of color, a Pacific Island woman, if you want to be very more, into it,
mm,
it has even been more of a struggle. And so that's part of the reason why we began the Pacifica Film Festival was because we wanted to create spaces more for voices to come forward. So I got shut out. I'm gonna be honest. I got shut out
mm,
of like HIV, sorry, not knocking it because we're still in competition with them, but Hawaii
mm,
International Film Festival, with even the film festival on Maui, we got shut out with certain films. And I understand me, there's a lot, it's very competitive.
mm,
But at the same time, so for me to, the way that I navigated through it was, I had amazing like colleagues who were like, I'm at this high school, I'm at this college, come to, University of Manoa, Hawaii Manoa, come to us and we're going to show your film. So we were able to go in through the education student part. But when we talk about like the audience, like
mm.
commercial audience, it's a little bit challenging to get your film because it's small and we're all competing for those little tiny spaces to be able to screen our work. So
Yes,
to have the opportunity to maybe show it, back in Hawaii again, with my
yes.
ancestral roots is so huge for me. So huge. I mean, it's a milestone because I do get a lot of people like, where can I see? I have Ohana, in all the islands, and they're like, how can we see it? You're doing all your stuff and I don't want to tell them I have to tell them in a nice way, like, well, it's because like Hawaii doesn't want me to show it there, so I have to
Right.
show it where people want to see it. So
Mm,
thank you to, these places, that are open to showing the film. And, we're hoping that we're going to shift that and we're
mm.
going to be able to one day really have a really huge screening. I actually got a phone call the other day from someone that they want to show it on Maui. So I think we're going to get
Wow.
that ready soon, pretty soon. I'll say, I don't want to spoil it, but Maui, we're coming to you for sure. Maui, we're coming to you, and we're gonna be screening Oceanbone with you.
Oh, wow. And also, now wrapping up with our beautiful talk story and beautiful Talanoa, thanking everybody. And I think I can see one of my aunties,
Oh,
Nana
hi,
Liti.
Auntie.
Yes, hi, Auntie Liti, for joining us, joining in from beautiful Fiji. Now,
Oh, okay.
for you, Dr. Lani, with the St. Louis International, Film Festival. What's going to be the next step?
So the next step is yes. So this is a call for support. So St. Louis in Missouri. So we need everyone to like rally all the folks, that are at this film festival, so that we can get selected. That's really what we want. If we get selected, then we automatically get nominated in, for the Academy Award in the
Wow.
category. That's usually how Oscar qualifiers work. So we need all of our aunties, all of our tutus, all of our colleagues. If you know anybody in that industry, that is in that state, that's part of this film festival, please support, drop a good word for us. There is not a lot of Pacific Island films out there. We do the work and a lot of us are part of these projects, but when we talk about getting it into like an Oscar qualifying film festival, it's
Mhm.
like a whole other level. So we need everybody to come out and to support and to share our work. You may not be able to like join us at the film festival, but you could like and share our work, with family, with friends, with your circles, and talk about, have you seen this new film, Oceanbone? Things like that. That would be so helpful to us.
Wow, that is awesome. Dr. Lani. So for our viewers, it's been a wonderful 50 minutes or so of just chatting. And, myself and Professor Lani here, we love to chat. We love to talk. And so I just wanted to say that this is the first of many talk story or Talanoa session that we are going to do on my platform. So this is the first, and there will be many more. And so in the future, if there's some of you have questions, we will be sharing some of our flyers. And those of you who would like to know more about this film, feel free to message me on Messenger or drop a comment on this live session. We've just been so excited, particularly for the St. Louis International Film Festival that has opened the door, for the Oscar nomination process. Yeah, that has opened that opportunity, and it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I know this film, Oceanbone, has so much potential. There will be part two, part three, part four, I'm sure. So over to you now, Dr. Lani, for the last word of our Talanoa today.
The last word, I'm just so mahalo nui loa to everybody and, just for your support, for your aloha. I have just felt so overwhelmed. Even like yesterday, I know we put out like something about the announcement with St. Louis, and I had like it was so overwhelming to get like my ohana, my familia. They were just reaching out to me like, is this real? Is this really? I'm like, this is really happening. This is really happening. So but we cannot do that without the support of all of you.
Yes.
This is a collaboration with so many different people. And I want to say this is our story, not my story, not Dr. Teresi's story. This is our story because it's happening to all of us, all over the world. And right now we need a lot of healing. This film is one step toward that path toward healing. And we want everyone to be a part of this journey. It's not just us. So just know that it's like, what do I get out of it? Well, you get out of you're part of our journey. So, when you see us there, that's you there too. Your culture, who you are, your spirit, you're there with us, like when we're going to these places. So continue to follow our journey. I am Lani Cupchoy on Instagram. You can find me there and reach out to me if you want. I have my website, lanicupchoy.com. But other than that, just Tracy, thank you, and thank you to all of our viewers for hearing our little talk story moment. I think it's really cool that you have this podcast, and thank you for having me on here. I'm so grateful.
Oh, you're most welcome. Vinaka Vakalevu, mahalo nui loa, Dr. Lani, for taking the time out, having this talk story, just making me go down memory lane, with the whole idea when it all started and all the amazing work that has been done by those that have gone before us. They've opened up this pathway, they've fought the fight, they've knocked on, locked doors, they've negotiated, they've debated, so many fights that has happened, decades ago. And so now is our time. And now with the use of this film, is going to open up so much dialogue and so much collaboration as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Lani.
Yeah,
You have a very good rest of the afternoon, and I will see you in our next Talanoa.
I will. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. All right, so there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That brings to the end of our Talanoa with Dr. Lani Cupchoy. As she mentioned, she has a website. She's also on some social media handles. So I will put a link on this chat, and we'd love to continue the Talanoa in the next coming weeks and months. So because there will be more announcements to be made. So when we get more awards and more invitations to different events, we'll definitely let you know. You'll all come with us. We are all in this together. All right. Good luck, everybody. Love you all. Take care. Bye.